It was the middle of summer in the business district of Montauk, New York, when three friends taking a walk on the beach found something that to this day has eluded explanation. This week on Morbid Mysteries and Histories, we have got a very fun topic. Cryptids! People love a good cryptid. Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, that person you went to art school with who barely ever left their studio. There's definitely an allure to the mystery and fantasy, something about making the world feel a little less small and known. Because although people fear the unknown, we also love it. And of course, when a place gets their own local cryptid, it's not only a boom for stories that can be told by the locals, but for tourism. It seems that in 2008, this little spot in New York may have had their own. It was July 12th, and the three friends, Jenna Hewitt, Rachel Goldberg, and Courtney Fruin, were out for a walk together on what's known as Ditch Beach, located in the district of Montauk, New York. And on the beach that day, they found something that they didn't quite know what to make of. As they investigated the strange creature with the group of people, Hewitt snapped a photo. This photo. The first impression was that this was some sort of dog-like creature with its front legs bound together, though it would have had to be a pretty small dog, and, even stranger, instead of a snout, it had what looked like a beak. It also, strikingly, lacked any hair. The friends didn't intend to really go far with this finding, they kind of just carried on with their lives, but not long after that there was the first reporting of this find in a local newspaper. On July 23rd, East Hampton Independent published an article with the title of Hound of Bonnockville, along with the photo taken by Hewitt. The title of this article was a play on Hound of Baskerville, but instead took the name from the nearby area called Bonnackers. I can't be saying that right. Sorry, anyone who lives there. The article was mainly written to be, pretty funny, kind of gross, some shock factor. A similar vibe to finding some weird thing in the woods and poking it with a stick. No one was taking this any too seriously yet. Then on July 29th, the story was reported on an online blog, which is the ever reputable and down-to-earth serious blog Gawker. The article that Gawker published on it was very short, kind of just a paragraph in total, but it did include the photo, and that's what really got people's attention. The post is also very sarcastic, also pretty humorous. It was filed under the section of their blog, "Good luck with your hell, demons," and the post suggested that this was some sort of marketing stunt. But it was with that one paragraph from the ever-reputable Gawker that this story went viral. Hewitt's photo traveled around the internet, theories started flying, and it wasn't long before an investigation was launched. Enter Loren Coleman, director of the International Cryptozoology Museum. He's got decades of cryptid research experience under his belt, and he wanted to check out this new creature. So Coleman showed up with all his years of experience and books he's written, people that he's worked with, and he was ready to take on this newest mystery. And no one wanted to talk to him. That might be a little bit extreme, but it was reported that locals just weren't too interested in his presence or sharing their stories with him, and he found that to make his investigation a little bit difficult. To make Coleman's investigation even harder, by the time that he got there, the body was gone. Some people, both in and out of the town, believed that it had been removed on purpose. This, of course, only made more theories fly. One local told Coleman that the body had decomposed and that the bones had been taken away by someone and buried in their backyard. So it looked like Coleman wasn't going to be able to get much information on this creature that he gave the name of Montauk Monster, but folks could still theorize and investigate with the information and two photos that they did have. See, while people weren't too interested in talking to Coleman, he did get to talk to some people. One of Hewitt's friends had taken another photo of the creature from a different angle. Looking at this, people were able to get a better idea of what this thing might be. So, what was this thing? First theory that I already kind of mentioned was that it was a marketing stunt. Now, I saw this theory referenced a lot in articles, but looking around, it really just originated with that one article in the ever-reputable Gawker, and everyone else just kind of referenced back to that. And in that article, they didn't even really, with any serious, speculate on what it could be a marketing stunt for, or why. Just that it could be one, and everyone else just echoed that. So that's kind of it on that. Next theory that of course had to come up was that it was an extraterrestrial. Of course, the thing that started this theory was that it couldn't be easily identified as any animal on Earth, which we'll get into. Even experts agreed that it just didn't seem quite right, and it had traits that didn't fit easily into anything. And then this theory was only pushed even further by things like the body mysteriously disappearing and locals not wanting to talk to people. It made everyone wonder, what were they hiding, or what were they even afraid of? Believing that the body had been removed intentionally in order to keep the public from finding out about something. People believed that the reason this alien had died was that it just wasn't able to survive in Earth's environment. I'm sure if most of us went to some alien planet, we wouldn't look too great or fare too great either. And this theory actually gained a lot of traction and was reported on in another source that is incredibly reputable with a great history.
Nefertiti's parents were maybe extraterrestrials.
That the genetic makeup of these medicine men allows them to access
Who were the gods? Extraterrestrials.
what appear to be human encounters with dinosaurs. That the moon may be hollow.
Ancient astronaut theorists believe the animal could be part of a long line of genetically modified creatures.
Okay, that was too long without blinking. And the third theory is actually one of the most popular, and in a way similar to the alien one, though not quite as out of this world. See, also playing off the fact that it didn't easily fit the description of any known animal, and that perhaps the body was removed on purpose, people also looked to a controversial place known as Plum Island. Not too far off the shore from Montauk, Plum Island has basically been quarantined for decades because of the one facility located on it, the Plum Island Animal Disease Center. Here they basically research and work to prevent various diseases of livestock and things like that. No other animals are allowed on Plum Island, the entire island, so that none of the diseases they're studying there can get out and cause problems. Now, like I said, this place has been subject to past controversy. One of the main questions being, is it safe to have a place like this so close to Manhattan? Sure, it's on its own little island, but the proximity to a huge city like that is a little scary to some people. There have been incidents in the past of little strains of things getting out, or maybe an animal escaping, but they were all dealt with fairly quickly, and none of them led to disaster. Oftentimes when talking about conspiracy related to Plum Island, people will point back to their history with biological warfare, as the center did conduct bioweapon research during the Cold War, but that was officially ended in 1969. There were some questions if it had really ended back then, and it was investigated in the 90s and proved that yes, it was done. But people still point to Plum Island now for conspiracy that the Montauk monster was an escaped mutant. There were a lot of people that agreed with this theory, and there was investigation done of the island to see if this could be possible. One reporter, Nick Layton, visited the island to see if this really could be the case. Did the Montauk monster originate from the Animal Disease Center? And if so, what implications does that have? Was the thing dangerous? Did a disease get out with it? Does this mean that there's some breach in security and a disease could get out? These are pretty serious questions to be asking. So in 2010, he went to investigate, and he and his team reported that it's actually pretty tightly secured. He didn't see much likelihood that anything could escape from there, and everything was kept very clean and under lock and organized, and at least that's what this reporter saw. Layton said that he and his team weren't even allowed to leave the island with a water bottle. That is how strict they are about keeping what they do contained. So what do I think the Montauk Monster was? Well, there is one more theory that I haven't talked about yet. Personally, I agree with this one. I think that the dead animal that was found and named the Montauk Monster is a dead animal, and not a mutant one. However, identifying what animal does pose a challenge, because like I've alluded to, even experts agree that it doesn't fit any description quite right. William Weiss, director of Stony Brook University's Living Marine Institute, actually agreed that the creature could be some sort of hoax or stunt, that it might not have been any sort of animal at all. His thoughts on ruling out various animals that it could be are basically this. It could be a raccoon, but the legs are too long, and that doesn't explain the beak. It could be a sea turtle, but sea turtles don't lose their shell in that way because it's kind of part of them. And they also don't have fur that there was remnants of, or teeth. It could be some kind of rodent, but it was far too large. It could be a dog or coyote. But the skull structure didn't match with the eye ridge, the beak-like thing, and he also stated that the feet didn't match those animals. Or it could be a sheep. But sheep also don't have sharp teeth or a beak. Can you imagine if they did? Then, our old reporter friend Nick Layton heard about a story that changed everything. He'd been told by another local reporter, Drew Grant, that he had found out that some unidentified folks had found a dead animal and given it a Viking funeral. The story was that this group of friends was out one night in June 2008 when they found a dead raccoon on the nearby Shelter Island. Grant talked with them and confirmed that they did intend to honor the dead animal with a Viking funeral send-off, and this wasn't some sort of prank. Though he did include, this is an exact quote, "In the interest of full disclosure, this did happen shortly after a waterboarding endurance competition and just before a clothespins on your genitals challenge." I don't know the demographic of these people, but I can only imagine that they are male and between the ages of 15 and 22. 9. So, in case you don't know, what's a Viking funeral? This is basically the long and the short of it. Taking a corpse, setting it on a raft or a boat or something, setting it on fire and setting it adrift at sea or a lake or whatever body of water is nearby. And now the thing about these that not a lot of people know is that when you give a corpse a Viking funeral, it's not gonna burn up and disappear. This isn't cremation. A simple fire like that is not going to get hot enough to actually cremate a body to the point of just ashes like you would get in an urn. Really what you're gonna end up with is a really charred body. And so perhaps this Montauk Monster was the remnants of that. The raccoon that had been found about a month earlier had been baking in the sun for who knows how long, set ablaze, and sent adrift. In a beautiful way, this wild animal that some people consider pests, though I can't imagine, look at them, look at their faces, everyone, was honored and given a funeral. Even if the wake was putting clothespins on your genital. And even though the Viking funeral didn't really work, the remains of the creature were supposedly still buried afterwards. If the story of the creature decomposing on the beach and then the bones being buried in the woods behind someone's backyard is true. So it is kind of nice that this little raccoon was given a funeral and a burial. The raccoon Viking funeral theory was further corroborated by others, one of them being Larry Penny, the East Hampton Natural Resources Director. He agreed that the creature looked like it was probably a very burnt up and damaged corpse of a raccoon that was missing the upper jaw, giving it that beak look. Another version of this theory that's a little bit more sad is that it wasn't a raccoon, but because of the bindings on the front legs and the dog-like appearance, that it was a dog forced into dogfighting, and when it died, for obvious reasons, was left to bloat and burn in the sun. Personally, I don't think that theory holds a lot of water, and I kind of just like the raccoon funeral better. He deserved a send-off like that, even as a little trash guy. But of course, people love a bizarre mystery. With a creature that can't easily be identified as anything on Earth, and a animal disease center not too far away, and locals that don't really want to talk about what happened, and a body that disappears. It is kind of a perfect setup for a real great mystery. But with all that being said, with so many reasonable explanations, and the fact that there wasn't a lot of local hype around it, people kind of wanted to just forget about it and move on. Even Coleman himself agreed that this doesn't really belong in the list of cryptids up there with El Chupacabra and the skunk ape. So, all in all, the Montauk monster was probably just a really dead, rotted, burnt up raccoon. Or was it?